Welcome back to another Minecraft video. Except today is the day. We're gonna do something a little different. Instead of building, I am going to give you guys some history about Ratton, the city here. You know, I spent probably a couple thousand hours building this city, and it's probably time to actually give it some backstory. So I spent the better part of an afternoon writing up a little bit of lore about a certain aspect of the city. I'm just trying to fill in the dots, I guess, make it make sense. Anyway, the story today is going to be about the history of the Town Watch, which is this building here. That's the Town Watch's headquarters for the city of Ratton, and it's kind of like this gothic French style castle, I guess. I wrote a little story about it, so criticisms always welcome. If you guys have stories or backstory or lore you want to kind of add to the city, feel free, throw that in the Discord. I can make a channel and we can just do a thread. You guys could kind of throw in your own ideas and I can make some more videos out of it. Maybe if you guys want to like write some lore, we could do like a storytime video every once in a while, keep it all updated. But yeah, that's the idea today. So a little differently paced. I apologize if you wanted to see something get built today. Maybe I'll make another video. We'll see how long this one takes to kind of produce and edit, and I might be able to do a short little building video for you guys. Maybe work on some more of the forest. So yeah, sit back, relax, and please enjoy the story time. This is the history of the Town Watch. Anyone who knows Ratton knows that a unique and imposing stronghold that the Town Watch uses as their headquarters, located on the eastern road leading out towards Gubaria. This structure and the men inside it are infamous for their role in the creation of the city. When Ratton was just a small town inhabited by farmers and their families, the Great Desert Empire went to war with the realm of Vale. Ratton is located on the outskirts of the realm, and the eastern road connects the town to the Desert Empire, making it an obvious military target. Sir Grombitz the Bold, a knight of Vale, was sent to Ratton by the king. With him came a small retainer who was tasked with protecting Ratton from the approaching desert armies. Ratton was a stop for trade and a collection of farmers. They had no defensive structures and no real weapons for the levy. Sir Grombitz knew that the situation for Ratton was dire. He needed labor and stone to build a stronghold, which his soldiers would not be able to collect in time for the impending invasion. He went to the town leaders and was met with contention and hesitancy to help. The leaders were the heads of households for the 7 biggest farms in Ratton. While a few were willing to help, a majority of them insisted that Ratton was a town of peace and trade, and building a stronghold would destroy the trust between the townspeople and the traders of the desert that had existed for generations. The town elder, Glebe Rat, was the only one to understand the true danger lurking in the distance. Glebe is the only person to travel to Gubaria and see firsthand the warrior culture of the desert people. He was fortunate enough to meet with the desert scholars and learn the history of the empire. The desert empire has always retained power through relentless conquest, expanding its borders by absorbing kingdoms through war. Glebe knew that if the desert empire was coming under their war banner, and the people of Ratton would be no more, regardless of the good trading relationship the town had established. After Grombitz's plea to the leaders failed, Glebe approached him in secret. Together, they formed a plan to deceive the villagers, one they believed was necessary to save Ratton. Glebe would use his influence to persuade the others to begin gathering materials for a trading hall on the eastern road, somewhere more permanent to conduct business with traveling merchants from the east. Grombitz would take a small force of soldiers and leave Ratton and camp nearby. The agreement between Glebe and Grombitz was that once the materials were gathered where a stronghold would be ideal, the townsfolk would pause the project to attend harvest, and Grombitz would use his soldiers to construct the fortress with those materials instead. This was agreeable to both parties. It made the most sense with just a bit of deception to the townsfolk. Grombitz, however, had other plans. Grombitz liked being in power. He saw this military excursion as a path to lordship if he were successful in repelling any attacks from the east. In secret, he formulated a plan to deceive the townsfolk even further and force them into building the fortress for him. To do this, he would need to use his soldiers to force the villagers into labor, which would assuredly anger them. But this was what Grombitz was sure must be done to construct the fortress in time and secure the eastern road from attack. Several weeks passed, and the villagers had gathered tons of stone, wood, and other building materials according to Glebe's instruction and placed them at the agreed location. Grombitz sprung his plan into action. In the twilight hours, the soldiers came out of the woods while Glebe and a few other townsfolk were taking inventory of the materials. Using the darkness, Grombitz's men got into position. Lucky for Grombitz, Glebe's youngest son, Stephen, with a PH, was hunting for bugs away from the others. Grombitz grabbed him, covered his mouth so he could not scream out in shock. The signal was given, and the soldiers lit their torches, revealing that they had surrounded the townsfolk with weapons drawn. One villager pulled a dagger of his own and was quickly struck down by a spear. Women screamed, and Grombitz made himself known, holding Stephen hostage. "Listen well. If you ever want to see this boy alive again, you'll build the fortress. Your peaceful life is over, whether you like it or not," Grombitz announced. Glebe was powerless to resist. Over the next months, the soldiers used the villagers as forced labor, and Grombitz kept Stephen hostage. Amongst the soldiers was a talented engineer who oversaw construction, and together he and the villagers built an imposing structure. stronghold. Once Grombitz was satisfied with the building, he released Stephen back to his family unharmed, but this act of deception did not sit well with the villagers. Glebe was a man of empathy, and he could see why Grombitz did what he did, but he could still not forgive for the mental anguish his people endured during the time of indentured servitude to the army. The villagers and the soldiers went their separate ways. Although the village was near the stronghold, the two groups rarely interacted. When the Desert Empire inevitably attacked, the villagers stayed locked in their homes as the battle raged around the fortress. Grombitz was slain, but the soldiers managed to hold the empire back, at least for now. The soldiers regrouped, but without a leader, they were weak, and the king would most likely not be sending help since he was on campaign deep in the empire's territory. They needed to cooperate with the townsfolk of Ratton if they wanted to survive. After the battle, around half the soldiers were left, and those who were closest to Grombitz abandoned the contingent. The engineer, who worked in the construction with the villagers, was the one to approach Glebe and ask for forgiveness. Glebe and the townsfolk were understandably hesitant, but the people who wronged Ratton were gone. However, the threat of the empire remained, and the soldiers needed help, and the people of Ratton needed protection. Glebe and the soldiers came to a new agreement. The soldiers in the fortress would be deemed the town watch of Ratton, and Glebe would be their commander. He would have authority over the town watch, and they would be allowed to coexist with the villagers. Some dissenting soldiers abandoned, but a majority stayed and took their new roles within Ratton, intermingling with the townsfolk. The Desert Empire never attacked along the eastern road again, but the stronghold of the town watch was left standing. As Ratton grew, so did the town watch. That original structure remains as a grim reminder of the bloody origins of the order. Alright, you guys, so that one is just a short little piece. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas for future stories or any part of the city that you kind of see and you're like, oh, that's kind of neat, I wonder what the story behind that is, let me know. I will happily start building some lore around this world. I'm gonna keep a living document going and just keep adding stories because I think this project deserves that. If you guys want to participate and help me out with some of this backstory and lore for the city of Ratton and the Kingdom of Vale, that would be amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry it was a little shorter than we're used to, but you know, it's good to get a little short video out here every once in a while. And yeah, we should be back to regular programming very shortly. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and peace.